What's going on, basketball family? Today's presentation is entitled Staying Connected. We should never, and I repeat, never, leave our shooters. Today's agenda will consist of the following: back to basics, closeouts, contest, boxing out, A to B, primary and secondary defenders, non basketball moves, and why we stay connected. So let's get to it. Let's get back to basics. So before we begin to understand what staying connected means, we must be in tune with our basketball rules. And if you've ever heard me say anything about basketball rules, I stand 10 toes down that guarding is perhaps the most fundamental rule in all basketball. This most fundamental rule in basketball can be found in the following rule sets: Rule 423 for National Federation of High School, Rule 4.17 for NCAA men, and Rule 10.4 for NCAA women. Basically understanding what it takes to obtain a legal guarding position, which is 2 feet on the playing court in bounds and the torso facing the opponent. And after we do that, the things we can do to maintain legal guard position. And basically, we can do anything except cause the illegal contact. And as I will tell anybody that will listen to me, that does not mean you have to be set, still, or stationary. That appears nowhere in this particular rule. So once legal guarding position is obtained, one of the things a player can do, they can defend vertically. So a player can defend vertically by rising and or jumping in his own play. So you may hear the officials speak of going from A to A. Pretty much A is the position on the floor that every player has legally and is allowed to be in legally. The player can go from A, rise or jump, and return to A without being displaced by an opponent. A player can use his hands and arms to defend on the floor or in the air within his own vertical plane. Again, this vertical plane we're talking about is A. And please note that the principle of verticality applies to both offensive and defensive players. So now let's discuss closeouts. We do have a training series that gets deeper into closeouts, but we will talk about closeouts very briefly in this particular training presentation and why it is important in the concept of staying connected.
Number 11 in black.
So closeouts are the closing of distance between the defender or defenders and either a wide open shooter or a potential wide open shooter. In this play, White 22 will attempt to close the distance on the wide open shooter in the corner. The ball handler dribbler will attempt a 3-point try as White 22 attempts to close the distance between herself and the ball handler dribbler.
Number 11 in black.
Now let's talk about contest. And often contest will occur immediately after a defender or defenders attempt to close out. Sometimes contests will occur even without closeouts. Contests are the attempts by defenders to either block a try or alter a try. Sometimes contests will follow a closeout by a defender. This is often the case on jump shooters, especially on 3-point shot attempts, where a defender will close out on our shooter and attempt to either block or alter the try. Other times, contests are simply attempts to block a shot without a closeout. In this play, our defender, white 20, attempts to contest the layup. He successfully contests the layup attempt with a block shot.
Colbert's come off the bench, giving some very productive minutes to Jerome Tang tonight.
Well, that's one of the things he has done well. He's only played 9 minutes total in Big 12 play, but he has 14 blocks on the season.
Now let's talk about the concept of boxing out. So boxing out, sometimes referred to as blocking out, comprises of action that occurs when an offensive or defensive player gets positioned between the basket and an adjacent opposing player to ultimately increase their chances of gaining the rebound, while at the same time decreasing the rebound gathering probability for that same opposing player, particularly during a shot attempt. In layman's terms, that means that one player gets a position and an advantage to obtaining a potential rebound and preventing their opponent from attaining the same said rebound. So boxing out usually occurs during an attempt for goal with potential rebounders, during a free throw after the release with potential rebounders, or on a ball handler dribbler by a defender after the shot attempt has been released. Now, in staying connected, we often are concerned with a shooter or ball handler dribbler taking a shot attempt and the defender that is contesting or closing out on said shooter turning around and boxing them out. We want to make sure that on this particular box out that our defender is not displacing our shooter. But most box out attempts that you will see occur on shot attempts and free throws. So boxing out usually occurs during an attempt for goal with potential rebounders. Sometimes during the free throw after the release with potential rebounders, or on the ball handler dribbled by a defender after the shot attempt has been released. In this play, we will see the defensive players for South Carolina attempt to box out Tennessee players following the three-point shot attempt.
Sarah Puckett will let the three ball fly. Rebound by Bree.
A to B. Now, we've talked about A to A earlier in this particular training presentation. Now we're going to talk about going from a vertical playing spot of A to another potential vertical playing spot of B. So we recall thinking of verticality, which is a legal position where a player goes from A to A. When a player jumps from one plane and lands in another, verticality no longer applies. We think of this as a player going from A to B. A player moving from one position to another position on the court is also going from A to B. Often occurs with secondary defenders. If contests follow closeouts, then those defenders are often going from A to B. In this particular play, our secondary defender, Black 13, goes from A to B for a closeout and contest. Black 13 fouls our ball handler dribbler.
Good step through with contact. Keep your eyes on the prize. First down, Masonis, and Watson to the line, the junior from Linwood, New Jersey.
Primary and secondary defenders. So a player moving from one position to another position on the court is also going from A to B. And this often occurs with secondary defenders when a primary defender is beaten. We've seen this play before. We want to highlight that Black 13 is the secondary defender on this play after the ball handler dribbler beats the primary defender. And in this case, our secondary defender, Black 13, while going from A to B for a closeout contest, fouls our ball handler dribbler.
Watson tries to step through and one. What a play by Watson. Good footwork on the inside. Late on the help to close the space. Good step through with contact. Keep your eyes on the prize. First on Masonis, and Watson to the line, the junior from Linwood, New Jersey.
Non-basketball moves.
Non-basketball moves remain a point of education for the 2022-23 NBA season, and the first type of non-basketball move that we will review is an offensive player launching or leaning into a defender at an abnormal angle or trajectory. The highlighted offensive player here, Jason Tatum, shot fakes, and he then moves overtly and abruptly to his right, and in doing so, he initiates more than marginal contact with the defensive player, Duncan Robinson. Since this contact initiated by Tatum is clearly more than marginal, it is correctly ruled an offensive foul. This next example involving Kelly Olynyk and Mo Wagner will result in a correct no call. After his shot fake, Olynyk launches forward into Wagner at an abnormal angle, but since the contact between the two players was only marginal, and it did not rise to the level of a foul, this was correctly ruled a no call and a play-on situation. The final play in this section will show contact after a shot fake that results in a defensive foul. After the shot fake by the offensive player, Marcus Smart, the defensive player, Andre Drummond, moves forward and he moves into Smart, right as Smart starts his upward motion to shoot. We can see that Smart did not make any abnormal or overt movement into Drummond, and since the contact on this play is more than marginal, it is correctly ruled a defensive foul. The next type of non-basketball move that we will review is a dribbler abruptly veering off his path and moving sideways or backwards into a defender. The highlighted dribbler, Brandon Ingram, moves past his defender, Cam Johnson, but he then abruptly moves to his left, initiating illegal contact with Johnson. This contact by Ingram is more than marginal, as it clearly affects Johnson's ability to defend the play. This was correctly ruled an offensive foul by the slot official. The final example in this section will show a dribbler who does not veer off his path, and instead it is the defensive player who initiates illegal contact. The highlighted dribbler, Ja Morant, drives toward the basket, and his defender, Jordan Poole, is not able to establish legal position in Morant's path. There is no abrupt or overt movement by Morant, and again, it is Poole who initiates the illegal contact here. A defensive foul was needed on this play. The next type of non-basketball move to review is an offensive player abnormally extending part of his body into a defender. The highlighted offensive player here, Jaren Jackson Jr., takes a jump shot, and he then extends his right leg in an overt manner. By doing so, he initiates illegal contact with the defender, Jason Tatum, tripping him and sending him to the floor. As this is clearly more than marginal contact, this is correctly ruled an offensive foul on Jackson. Watch this next play closely. The highlighted offensive player, Fred VanVleet, extends both of his legs out in an overt and abnormal manner, and he initiates illegal contact with the defender, Paul Reed, tripping him and causing him to go to the floor. This was more than marginal contact, and an offensive foul on VanVleet was needed on this play. Now let's look at another play where a shooter extends part of his body outside his normal motion to shoot. Here, the offensive player, DeAndre Hunter, overtly extends his right leg out and up, and by extending his leg in this manner, he initiates contact with the defender, Duncan Robinson. And while this play was ruled in-game to be a defensive foul on Robinson, the proper call on this play would be a no call and a play-on situation. The final type of non-basketball move to review is contact between an offensive player and his defender, where the offensive player uses his off arm to initiate illegal contact. Here, the dribbler, Trae Young, uses his off arm to hook the arm of the defender, Terry Rozier. This illegal contact, seen clearly here on the replays, affects Rozier's ability to continue defending the play. An offensive foul on Young was correctly called on this play by the trail official. This next play is another example of an offensive player using his off arm to initiate contact and illegally hook his opponent. Here, the dribbler, Karl Anthony Towns, uses his off arm to hook the arm of the defender, Goga Batadze. This illegal contact initiated by Towns clearly affects Batadze's ability to defend the play. Towns was correctly called for an offensive foul here by the lead official.
Now we look at why we stay connected to our shooters. This play highlights why we stay connected to our shooters. In this play, we have a three-point try by White 24. After the ball is released, White 24 is illegally contacted by Green 4, and our trail official correctly calls the foul. When our shooter is in our primary coverage area and releases the ball for a shot, and we have a defender potentially running out our shooter for a closeout in the contest, it is important that we not follow the ball, but that we stay with the shooter and any contesting and closeout defenders. Thank you for spending some time with us today. We hope you gained some invaluable insight and knowledge from this training presentation entitled Staying Connected. We hope we did a great job of convincing you the importance and significance of staying connected to our shooters, which are ball handler dribblers, at all times, even after they have released the ball for a try. For our YouTube members, we're going to have a variety of plays where we highlight the importance of staying connected with our shooters. Again, thank you for viewing our training series entitled Staying Connected. Never should we leave our shooters. We hope you have a great day, a great week, a great month, a great year. Have a great season.